How is Tyson going to beat Fury without bringing a stepladder into the ring, right? There's almost a foot difference between.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Marcos Villegas here in Las Vegas, being joined with Bob Arum. Bob, over the weekend, Tyson Fury scoring a knockout win over Dillian Whyte. What'd you make of the fight overall and the actual shot that took Dillian down?
Well, Tyson Fury is incredible, and Whyte had a guard up that was hard to penetrate. And Tyson waited to land that uppercut because Tyson is a student of the sport, and he saw how Povetkin had knocked out Dillian Whyte a couple of years ago and hit him with the uppercut. Boom, right on the button.
Whyte put out a statement, I want to say like the next day, saying that it was really the push that had knocked him out because he hit him with the uppercut. The push happened and it forced him to hit his head. What's your response to that?
Dillian Whyte's a sore loser, and he was very difficult in the promotion. He wouldn't cooperate. Some of these guys march to their own drummer, and I don't know why Dillian Whyte did that. Once we got him into the promotion that last week or so, apparently he was perfectly fine, cooperated. So I don't know what to make of it, but I think he has a lot of people around him advising him that give him bad advice.
When you look at the future for Fury, he said that this is it. He's retiring. He's done a few interviews where he's kind of, I don't want to say doubled down, but stood by those statements. Have you talked to him about that?
No, the only time I talked to Tyson was after the fight. I called Moretti, who was in the ring. I couldn't go to the fight because I had COVID, so I had to stay behind in the U.S. And Carl put Tyson on the phone with me. And Tyson said that then that about 2 weeks he was bringing the family to Las Vegas. He has a nice home here, and we talked then. Tyson is Tyson. He makes up his own mind. I am sure that when he says that he is retired, that when he says it, he believes it. Now, that doesn't mean that in 1 month or 2 months he might want to do something else. So we'll have to see.
He brought in Ngannou in the ring with him on the ESPN broadcast, and they talked about a potential exhibition fight. He said, yeah, I'm going to retire, but then I'm going to go in and fight Ngannou. Is there any concrete steps toward making that fight with Ngannou happening at this point?
Well, right now, the Ngannou has an injury. I think an ACL tear that where they're working on rehab and everything. So he won't be available until next year. So at that particular point, we'll see. Does he have a contract with the UFC, which would prevent him from fighting? Is he a free agent, or is he under the promotion of the UFC? All of those issues will have to be explored.
Well, I know the UFC has a deal with ESPN. You guys are with ESPN. So I would imagine that making the fight wouldn't be too much difficulty, or would it, given the promotional thing that is hanging over this with the UFC?
Well, I never discussed it with Dana White. I never even talked in my life to Dana White. It was funny, but we never talked. So I don't know what his view of it is. If they have certain rights, UFC, then obviously we're going to respect those rights. And then that'll be time to have a talk with Dana White. But right now, it's all preliminary. I mean, I really got to sit with Tyson, go out to a couple of dinners, and really see where his head's at.
You have perspective, Bob. I know after the fight, it was said by many people that Tyson could be up there with the greatest heavyweights ever, if not the second greatest British heavyweight ever. Some people have said maybe he is the greatest British heavyweight ever. What do you make of those claims, and how do you see it, given your time and experience working so long in boxing?
Well, the comparison is somewhat unfair because we never had, when Ali was fighting, and later when George fought, guys of that stature, so big in boxing. Generally, these big guys in those days were no good. Again, when I was growing up so many years ago, a center in basketball could be 6'5" tall and was considered massive. Well, of course, a guy like that today couldn't even play center. He's too small. So it all changes, How do you make a comparison between eras? You don't, particularly when you're dealing with different size athletes.
A lot of people have said that Fury, would have beaten all the great heavyweights, just given his size, his reach, his athleticism as a fighter.
Well, yeah, you take a guy like Mike Tyson, who is this fearsome puncher and so forth. Well, I mean, how is Tyson going to beat Fury without bringing a stepladder into the ring, right? There's almost a foot difference between them. So I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, Ali, who was about 6'2", 6'3", how would Ali deal with a guy who was a half a foot taller than he was and could box and could punch? I don't know. But, maybe knowing Ali, he would have found a way. I mean, you just don't. I hate these comparisons with different eras. You see, you can make those comparisons in a sport like track because you have times, or swimming, same thing. But you can't make that comparison. It's unknown in other sports like boxing or basketball or football. I mean, I remember when I first became a pro football fan, Andy Robustelli was the great defensive end for the New York Giants, football giant. Well, I don't think he was 6'1", He was a little guy. But they all were sort of little, So it all you can't make to say that Tyson Fury would have beaten every heavyweight that's ever been. Maybe the answer is yes, but who really knows?
After the knockout, Eddie Hearns did an interview where he said that you can't put Fury in the name of like a Lewis until he faces Joshua or Usyk.
Well, I tend to disregard what Eddie Hearns says because Eddie will talk if you put a microphone in front of him without thinking. Who is he to say that you won't regard Tyson Fury as the best until he has a resume like Lennox Lewis. I mean, Lennox was a hell of a heavyweight, but I recall him getting knocked out a couple of times by McCall and by Rockman. Yeah.
When you look at the future, like us as fans, like me as a fan, I want to see. Excuse me, Bob. I want to see the undisputed fight, like between Joshua or Usyk against Fury. Like when I hear retirement, I think like no, like do the undisputed fight. Is there a push on you guys to want to see that fight as well between them?
Well, certainly. I mean, if Fury is not going to be retired, obviously the fight for him is against the winner of Joshua Usyk. So, again, but if the man wants to be retired and believes that that is best for his future, he's a young man from the standpoint of longevity, maybe not from the career, I respect that as well. But sure, I would like to see a unification. Everybody would. But we'll have to see if that's possible.
Thank you so much for watching this video, and make sure to subscribe for more videos of your favorite fighters over here on Fight Hub TV, and give us a follow online as well at Fight Hub TV on Twitter and on Instagram. We appreciate it, guys.